So this is part 2 of chapter 41. Digestion, the process of animal nutrition can basically be divided into a couple of parts, four parts. Ingestion is the method in which you procure your food. You know, it's from the grocery store to the stove to the plate, and the action of stuffing it in your face. Um, Digestion can basically be divided into two parts: mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. The process of chewing your food, tearing it into smaller pieces so it is manageable and it can be digested easily. So when you chew your food, you're basically increasing its surface area, right? You're exposing a lot more of its area for chemical digestion. The next part of it is chemical digestion. That is where enzymes work on it, different types of proteins work on it, and basically break it down into its substrates. So a carbohydrate is broken down into basic glucose. Proteins are broken down into their amino acid components. Nucleic acids are broken down into their, the sugar is broken down. The ribose sugar comes off, the adenine, the thymine, and all of those come off. Lipids are basically broken down into the fatty acid chains and the glycerol. And whatever is undigested, so once that is over, then it goes from there into the small intestine, where a lot of it, the nutrients, the essential nutrients for your body, is absorbed into the bloodstream. Your steak is never absorbed into your bloodstream. It's the proteins that is broken down into the amino acid that's absorbed into the bloodstream. Whatever is left over is elimination, and this process is pretty much common for every digestive system in higher level vertebrates and higher level organisms. So there are different types of nutrition, different ways in which nutrition is gathered. One of them, the first one that we're going to discuss, is suspension feeders and filter feeders. Basically, think about it this way: if you have a big pot of like matzo ball soup, and all you want to take is the matzo balls, you would use a slotted spoon. You'd basically take it and then, let the water drip out, let the soup drip out, and just get, the hardware, the matzo ball and the carrots or whatever else you have in it. That is a suspension feeder. These are usually large animals. These are usually, what they do is they take in large amounts of water into their mouth. Mostly the suspension feeders and filter feeders are aquatic organisms. They take large amounts of water in, whatever is required. Like if there's little phytoplankton, there's little algae, sometimes even small fish, they stay back and the rest of it is pumped out. The gills actually function to do that. They do pump out the water. Most large animals tend to be bulk feeders, which is this one. We are bulk feeders, but in the family of blue whales and baleen, the baleen family, they have like this little, almost like a grill mesh kind of thing, which is the baleen. Water enters, and through the plankton stays back in, and everything else comes out. Think of it as a semi-permeable membrane, right? The water can come out, and everything else just stays inside. They're also They were also one of the earliest forms of ingestion of food was filter feeders and suspension feeders within the higher level organisms. You have fluid feeders. Fluid feeders are like mosquitoes. Basically, high nutrition value fluids are they just suck those in. For example, your blood. Your blood has a lot of nutrients in it. There's carbohydrates in it. I mean, there's glucose molecules, there's amino acids, there's proteins, there's vitamins, all of these things. So they just suck up that high nutrition fluid. You also have something like aphids. Aphids do that to plants. So they suck on tree sap. The male mosquito, again, lives on the tree. Only the female mosquito lives on the blood. Mostly the male mosquito lives on tree sap. So they're filter feeders. There's substrate feeders. For these guys usually live very, very close to their source of nutrition. Different types of insects do that. Basically, what they'll do is they'll bore into the plant and they will take exactly what macromolecule they need. Like beetles do it for a cellulose. So they'll bore into the plant and all they eat is that cellulose, that basic substrate. All the fluff that goes with it, they don't need that. They just eat, if they're going to eat a carbohydrate molecule, that's the only thing they're going to eat. Within the substrate feeders, earthworms also are a part of it. Caterpillars are a part of it, where they take in, earthworms are a part of it, where they take in a whole bunch of soil, and then they digest the organic material and eliminate the inorganic material. We, on the other hand, are bulk feeders. When we eat a piece of steak, it's a large piece. We eat, there's fat in it, there's gristle in it, there's proteins, there's small minute amounts of carbohydrates. We eat all of it together, and then our body basically goes through the process of sorting all of that out. We have a more elaborate expulsion or excretion system. That is a vertebrate that is basically doing bulk feeding, like really bulk feeding. So we're going to look at some of the first evolutions of the digestive system. This is a hydra. It's from the group Nidaria. Basically what they had was, it just has one large, and it's a proteasome. It has only one hole for both taking in the food and expelling anything that's not required. So it works both as a mouth and an anus. So this is a large gastrovascular cavity. Excuse me. If you think about our digestive system, we have something called as an alimentary canal. So there's the mouth, there's the esophagus. It is a closed canal, and it's contained within a certain area. However, this is a large gastrovascular cavity. This cavity is just filled with different types of enzymes, and once the food enters, it's broken down in similar fashions. It's broken down, and then, as you can see, these little finger-like projections act like microvilli. Basically, they absorb the broken down food particles. Once the food particle is broken down into its individual substrates, those substrates are absorbed, and then they provide nutrition for the whole organism. Anything that's wasted is kind of goes right back out. So they just have one hole for mouth and anus. That is kind of gross, though. Now let's look at some rudimentary alimentary canals. Again, these are, unlike the previous hydra where it was just an open sac, there are specialized organs here. So let's start with the earthworm. The earthworm is now, remember, the earthworm has a very rudimentary nervous system. They have a ganglion. That means just a cluster of neural cells. So they're not as, like, I know that's a stupid word to use, but they're not as stupid as one would think they are. They do have a ganglion. So one of the early developments that you see here is two things. One is the pharynx. The esophagus, it functions similar to us. We have a similar esophagus. The food, it's a tube through which food goes down through muscular action called peristalsis. There is a crop. The crop is basically a storage area. Crops are seen in birds. They're seen in a lot of non-avian dinosaurs. Hence, they're seen in a lot of reptiles. It's a storage area. It basically takes the food, makes it into, in the human body, it would be called a bolus, but it kind of makes it into a hard pellet. There is a little bit of enzymatic action that takes place, but not a lot. And then it goes into the gizzard. The gizzard is a very hard, muscular organ, if you want to use that word. It does a lot of grinding action, just like our teeth does mechanical digestion. The gizzard does the same thing. It has like these little like if you go to a Mexican restaurant and they make like table side guacamole, and they have that mortar and pestle, it's similar to that. That has like these very almost stone-like muscles that grind the food, and then there is a certain amount of a little bit of enzymatic action that takes place, not as much. Again, the intestines do the same function of absorption. It's absorbed into the stream. Again, if you remember that this is a canal, so it's isolated from the rest of the body. Its nutrients has to be taken out, and then, using a different medium has to be spread all over the body. And obviously the anus does the exact same function that it does in our body. You'd see the same thing in most insects have the same crop. Crop's function is always the same thing as a storage and kind of making the food into a pellet, a more manageable pellet. They have insects, on the other hand, have a lot more gastric juices, because remember, most insects tend to be more substrate feeders. So they're not trying to eat a whole ton of fiber that comes with eating a peach. They're trying to eat just that sugar molecule. So there is a lot more action. Birds have the same thing. There is the mouth and esophagus, a crop. So if you think about it in terms of evolution, they have to eat stuff really fast, pick up as much food as they can really fast, and because predation is a huge problem. So they have an internal storage mechanism. As human beings, we've evolved hands, so we can actually pick up our food and then go put it away in a different location, whereas birds couldn't do that. So they have a modification of their esophagus that allows them to store food so that they can do the digestion process a little later. Digestion as a process is antithesis to the flight and fight syndrome. So if you are out in the open being chased by a lion, your flight or fight syndrome kicks in. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in. There's epinephrine, there's norepinephrine, there's all of these hormones. You will never feel hungry during that period. There isn't a human being alive that was being chased by a lion and stopped for a burger. So it's the same thing for birds. So they have to eat everything as quickly as possible. So there is a storage mechanism for that. Now coming to the human digestive system, one of the things that you have to remember is you need to know all of these parts. You need to know what they do and how they work. So I'm just gonna go over it. The alimentary canal. The alimentary canal itself is the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestines, and the rectum and the anus. This is the basic canal. The liver, the pancreas, just all the liver and the pancreas, these things are called accessory organs. They help the digestive system. They provide you with most of the enzymes that are required to break the food down comes from there, but they're not the main portion of it. They are accessory organs. The gallbladder, the liver, and the pancreas, this section of it are called accessory organs. This is not an open channel the way it looks here. It looks like it's an open channel. That's not what it is. Up here you have something called as an epiglottis. It's almost a flap that closes and opens. I'm sure your parents have told you don't eat and talk at the same time, because you have the esophagus, and then if you feel your neck, you'll feel these little weird C rings on your neck, and that is a part of your respiratory tract. Right behind that, that's your trachea, and right behind that is your esophagus, and it has one flap. There are two openings and one flap. It's called the epiglottis. So if you eat and talk at the same time, you're confusing your epiglottis which one to close, so then food kind of trips and goes into your trachea, and then you're choking. So there's the flap right here. There is a sphincter. Sphincters are just muscles that clench open and close. These are all involuntary. So far involuntary. When it comes to voluntary, I'll tell you. There is right here, you have one sphincter in the top of the stomach that makes sure that things just don't come in and go, mostly to make sure that the acid in the stomach doesn't go and burn the esophagus. The sphincter is the cardiac sphincter, and then out here, right before it enters the small intestine, you have one more sphincter, and it is called the pyloric sphincter. So that's what a sphincter looks like. It kind of clinches open and close, and then as it goes through this, even here you have two sphincters, two anal sphincters. Sphincter is voluntary and the other one is involuntary.